Hello there, so this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my entire merch collection for the band Ghost. So Ghost has been rapidly becoming one of the most recognizable names in the rock and metal scene, and their new single, Satanized, is currently at over 5 million views. Their new album, Skeletor, drops at the end of the month, so there's a lot to be excited about Ghost. And Ghost over the years has released a lot of very interesting merchandise. Every album cycle they have a new character come in as the leader of the band with a new look, a new aesthetic, so there's always something really interesting to look forward to in the merch department, and I'm going to go through every era and I'll show you what I have. So starting with their first album that was released in 2010, this is Opus Eponymous. And this album has a much more stripped down type of sound than what we've come to know from Ghost. Very influenced by kind of old school rock and metal. Think like sort of Black Sabbath meets Blue Oyster Cult in a way. Very cool stuff. And a lot of the merchandise from this era is kind of rare and quite pricey, so I don't have a whole lot of it, but they did release some Funko Pops. So this right here is Papa Emeritus 1, so this was the lead singer, the original character, right there. And they also released one of these, which was the full album art, and that's very cool. So that's all I have from the Papa 1 era. So when their second album, Infestissumam, rolled around, they started to experiment a little bit more musically and kind of started to come closer to the sound that we know today. Started dipping a little bit more into a pop rock and a little bit of a psychedelic rock sort of angle, and really cool. Some people thought that this was kind of the weaker of sort of their original 3 albums, but I think that it is solid all the way through. A lot of great songs on there. Some of what I consider to be Ghost's best work is on there. And they did release a Funko Pop, so this is Papa Emeritus 2. This was actually the first Ghost Funko Pop that was ever released, and I remember being really shocked that they actually released one of these. And now there are so many of them. There's so much Ghost merchandise, but I remember being kind of shocked back in the day. Right here, this is something I actually picked up at Midtown Comics. This is the Super 7 action figure. So you slide this off right here, and then you got it right there. And he also comes with an additional head because most of the Papas outside of the first one all have dressed down. They have their regular sort of Pope attire, and then they have a bit of a dressed down look. So you got the head right there, and then you got his little hat. Yeah, this is a really cool figure. They released these for Papa 1 and 3 as well, but this is the only one that I have, so very awesome. And also during the Papa 2 era, they released this EP, which is all cover songs, called If You Have Ghost, and very cool. They have cover of If You Have Ghost, I'm a Marionette, Crucified, Waiting for the Night, and a live version of their song Secular Haze. They started doing this between albums where they'd release an EP, normally of cover songs, and I'm typically not a big fan of the covers that they do, but some of them definitely stand out and are pretty good, and this one altogether is pretty darn good, so definitely check this one out. A lot of good stuff on there. And then we get into my favorite era. This is the era I found them during, and this is their third album, Meliora, which was very, very cool. A lot of my favorite Ghost songs are on this album. So I actually had no idea who Ghost was until I went to one of their concerts in 2016, and I was actually able to get this poster. As you can see, it is signed. All of their little symbols there. And this is from the first Ghost show I went to It was in Niagara Falls at the Rapids Theater. It was Sunday, April 17th of 2016. And this right here, I was actually able to find just like last summer for $20. There was like a little record shop across the street from where this venue was, and they wound up with it. So yeah, that was an awesome score, and very nice to have this little memento of that first ever ghost show. And I also have one of these reaction figures. This is the all black and white one. And something kind of cool, if you've been to a ghost show before, they will fire a confetti cannon, and they'll actually have these that people in the crowd can catch. This is Mummy Dust, which is named after a song on Meliora. And I have quite a few of these. Some of them I have given away or misplaced, but still have a few of them from this era. And they started doing this ever since, so every era they've had a different look for these. So very cool to find if you can get up close at one of their shows. And like I was mentioning before, between every album, they also released an EP of mostly cover songs. And so my copy of Meliora actually has that EP on it. And there was one original song on there, which is Square Hammer, and that's actually become one of their most popular songs. That was the song that I remember after becoming a fan of them that kind of started getting more notice for the band. I remember a lot more people I knew who were just kind of casual rock and metal fans started noticing them after that. And so there is the track list. I'll read it out. Square Hammer, Nocturnal Me, I Believe, Missionary Man, and Bible. And so, I'm not the biggest fan of the covers from that era, but I do really, really love Square Hammer. And I do have one more thing from the Papa 3 era, and this was from the Pope Star tour. They were giving these out with the VIP packages in 2017 when Ghost was touring with Iron Maiden, and I actually did not get this through a VIP package. I actually traded for it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but this is a spirit board, so it's kind of like a Ouija board type thing. And I've never actually taken the thing out of the box, but I'll show you right now. So you got the Papa Planket right there. I think that's what that's called. And then you open it up and you got the spirit board right there. So I'm really glad I was able to get one of these back in the day. A lot of the merch from those early eras can actually be pretty hard to find these days. And after the Meliora era, after Ghost started gaining more popularity, the merch started becoming a lot more common. So after Meliora, everything's been pretty much mass-produced. You can find a lot of it at Hot Topic. And during the Pope Star tour, they actually recorded one of those shows and released their first live album. And I'm covering part of this up because the copy I have is not just the standard release that you can find anywhere in the US. This was the Mexican release, which was uncensored and features a phallic object on the front. We'll just put it that way. So Ghost is always fun and putting out some weird stuff like that. So I was happy I was able to find this because this is something that you absolutely cannot find anymore. I got this back in the day for like $10, and I haven't seen any of these CDs go up for sale recently. I saw one vinyl record that was for sale for $666 with this artwork. So, very interesting there. And then we move into the Cardinal Copia era. So this is a bit of an interesting time when Ghost was really starting to pick up some popularity, and they actually could not use their character, Papa Emeritus, for their fourth album due to a lawsuit that Ghost was involved in, and it actually led to the outing of the band's leader, Tobias Forge. Up until that point, he was completely anonymous. Nobody knew who was under the Papa mask until he was named in that lawsuit. So they created this character, Cardinal Copia, who was kind of a Papa in training, and he eventually did become Papa 4, but he had an album as Cardinal Copia, and you can't see that well with the glare, but I do have the lenticular cover of their 4th album, Prequelle, and this album is honestly a masterpiece. Like, I remember at first not necessarily liking this album that much, but after a few more listens, it really, really grew on me, and this is definitely when Ghost really found that sound that has defined Ghost ever since. And right before Prequelle came around, Cardinal Copia was appearing on a bunch of magazines, and I was able to get a copy of Revolver. There were a few different covers they released for this, and this is the one that I found at a local grocery store, and there was actually a very early unmasked interview from Tobias Forge in here. And also in the lead up to Prequelle's release, they actually went out on the road for their Rats on the Road tour. They actually had no openers on that tour, so it was just 2 hours of straight Ghost, and it was amazing. So for that tour, we actually got the VIP package, so got these lanyards right here. We got these little golden tickets. There was a drawstring bag. I don't have that right now. And one of the really cool things, kind of the big thing that you got, was this awesome Rats picture disc. And they also gave you these Rats lyric sheets, which I threw in the back there. Thought that was really cool. And since my husband and I both had the VIP package, we each got one of these, so I actually traded the other picture disc for that spirit board that I showed earlier. I went on Facebook to a Ghost merch trading group, and I was able to find someone who was willing to trade me for that. So that was really awesome, and I got a lot of really cool stuff from that show. One of which was this lithograph right here. This is something I want to get framed eventually. We were actually thinking about making like a cool collage of some of our Ghost stuff and having that in there. So that was from the Rats on the Road tour. And during that era, they actually introduced a new character named Papa Nil, who was an older Papa. He's actually the father of all of the Papas that we've known from Ghost, and so he was on the Mummy Dust for that tour. And they also released him in Funko Pop form. There was no Cardinal Copia Funko Pop, but we did get Papa Nil. And during this era, they started to get a little bit more out there with the merch, and they released this Cardinal Copia plushie, which has become quite infamous among Ghost fans just for how ugly it is, and people absolutely love this guy. He's been nicknamed the Potato, and there are actually a bunch of bootlegs of this. If you go on like Temu and Amazon, there are a bunch of Chinese knockoffs because they've re-released this a few times, but for a while, it was super hard to get one of these. People were charging crazy amounts for it secondhand. So people were pretty happy to just get one of the bootlegged ones, but I'm happy I was able to get an original. And yeah, this guy is quite ugly. When Papa 4 came around, they released an updated plushie, which looked a lot more normal. I do have that. It's not here right now, but people did not love that one nearly as much as this guy. And he actually got his own t-shirt design. It was so popular that they made this fun t-shirt inspired by E.T. And then when 2020 rolled around, after a couple years of touring as Cardinal Copia, he was finally promoted to Papa Emeritus 4. And since 2020 was kind of a slow year for releases, it was a little while before we actually heard any music from Papa 4, but they actually did this TV appearance where they did a cover of Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones, and there's actually a t-shirt that they put out of the outfit he was wearing on that TV appearance. And then in 2022, we finally got to hear some music from this new era of Ghost when their album Impera was released. And Impera is a very big album, very high production value, and some people love it, some people hate it. This is definitely an era that kind of started to polarize some Ghost fans, but I really enjoy this album, even though I would say it probably is my least favorite that has been released so far, but the high notes of this album are very, very high. And even some of my least favorite songs have kind of started to grow on me over time, but there's definitely a bit more of a pop sort of direction, a little bit more mainstream appeal to the album, I guess. And this was a very important era for the band as they were rapidly growing in popularity, and a lot of merchandise was released around that time. And I'm not going to show nearly every t-shirt I have with Papa 4, but this was actually the first Papa 4 design that I got on a t-shirt right there. And then they did release actually a few Funko Pops of Papa 4. I have 2 of them. I think there's one that came out just more recently that I don't have, but that's the first one that they released. And then here is his more dressed down look. And then they actually went ahead and made another potato of Papa 4, because before I was saying they made a Papa 4 plush that looked pretty normal, and that one was not nearly as popular with fans, so they updated the look to make it a little bit more desirable, I guess you could say. And continuing with the trend of releasing cover EPs, in 2023 they put out Phantomime. So it was kind of funny because on Easter Sunday that year, they did like a bit of a weird video, Jesus talk with a new character who's like this preacher that's like a really shady guy behind closed doors. And it was just like a weird like hour-long Jesus talk type thing. And then immediately after that was over, they released a cover of the Genesis song, Jesus He Knows Me, and they had just a wild, off-the-walls music video with this character named Father DeFrock, and he did some very unholy things in that music video, we'll just put it that way. And this copy I have is still sealed. Like I said before, I'm not the biggest fan of when they do covers, and so I did not necessarily love all the songs on here, but they did do a really cool cover of Phantom of the Opera by Iron Maiden. I think I might actually like Ghost's cover of that a little more, and the way Tobias Forge described this was, after Impera was just such a big album with such a high production value, he really just wanted to do kind of a more stripped down, straight up rock and roll record, so just picked some rock songs that he just really wanted to cover and thought that was pretty cool. And then at the end of 2023, as Papa 4 was finishing up his final tour, those last 2 shows in Los Angeles were recorded and made into a movie called Right Here, Right Now, which is a reference to some lyrics from the song Square Hammer. And I do not have a physical copy of the movie, but I was able to get the soundtrack, and this was really cool. You have all the songs that were played in the movie, as well as a brand new song called The Future is a Foreign Land. And that song was played during the credits, and there was a really cool kind of montage that they played along with it. And I was able to see that in the theaters with a big group of friends. It was a really awesome time. And from that experience, I was able to get this awesome popcorn bucket and nice little drink cup there as well. And it was kind of crazy because a lot of people were having a hard time getting that stuff at the actual theaters. And so people were going on eBay and spending like crazy amounts of money on that stuff. And then Ghost just released it on their merch store for like normal price. So some people got really, really screwed out of some money there. And they did a phenomenal job putting this movie together. I actually did a review of it on my channel a while back. If you're interested in hearing more about it, I would highly recommend checking that out. But I've seen Ghost over 10 times at this point. I will be seeing them for the 11th this summer. And out of the 10 times that I've seen them, my favorite concert is still the Rats on the Road tour from 2018. And not just because of the 2-hour set they played, not because of the VIP package or any of the merch. It was because I actually got engaged at that show. And my anniversary is coming up. You know, I'm sitting around all this stuff.
Pardon me, madam. It's the bat phone.
Who?
Happy anniversary.
Wait, you want me to open this right now?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm being interrupted, but that's okay. Okay, I have an anniversary gift I'm opening. Alright. Well, it looks like there was a lot of care put into packaging this. And I think I might have an idea what it is because you've been talking about it a lot the last couple days. They put it in this styrofoam, and it's in a bubble mailer, but at least it did have some styrofoam, so I think I know what this is. Tight in there. Got to get this tight in there. Okay. Let's see what it is. I can't believe you got it. I mean, I kind of felt like you did, just because the story that the seller gave seemed a little bit suspicious. So a little bit of background before I show you what this is. So, this is something I've been keeping my eyes out for a long time. It's something that doesn't pop up very much. And I found a copy. There was a seller that had this book in a big lot. And I asked if they could just separate the one book. And they agreed to do it. They said, you know, they'd do it for a little bit less, whatever. And then the dude, like, ghosted me. And it was just really weird. So the seller ghosted me. And then he got back to me and said that his dog destroyed it. And I thought it seemed a little suspicious, but thought maybe the guy figured out what it might be worth and wanted to sell it for more money. I don't know, but apparently Luke was going behind the scenes, working some shenaniganery here. This is a comic that is not easy to find at all, and it's not in perfect shape, but because of how difficult to find it is and the extra coolness of it being signed, I'm extremely happy to finally have in my possession The Dark Knight's Death Metal #2, the Ghost variant. When they did Dark Knight's Death Metal, they released a bunch of variant covers with different metal bands, and this was like a Mexican release, I think, so there aren't many of these at all, and I doubt there are many that are signed by Papa 4, and especially with that character being retired now, it's likely that more of these will not be popping up. So this is amazing, and actually have a t-shirt on right now of that design, and we actually do have a poster of it as well that came with the t-shirt. We've been wanting to get it framed, so I don't have it out right now, but just want to give you guys another really nice close-up there. You want to see that? So you got the Batman who laughs, and Papa Emeritus 4, and it's got cool foil look. So wow, yeah. Overall, this is amazing. I'm blown away. Get in here, you goofball. So, as I was saying before, we actually got engaged at the Rats on the Road show in 2018. And I want to close out this video by playing the clip for you of that moment, because out of everything I have, you know, I'm sitting around a lot of merchandise, and a lot of this stuff does fetch, you know, quite a bit of value, but to me, the most valuable thing, the most priceless thing that I got from Ghost is my husband right here. So, happy anniversary, Luke. Thank you very much.
Happy anniversary,
really means
though.
so much. So,
I knew there was only one of a kind and you deserved it.
So, I'm going to leave you with that special moment. Thank you.
But before you do, will you sing one last song with us?
Celia! My best friend!
Will you sing loud and clear a song